welcome back to the Neon Chronicles. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at how to link up a controller to your mobile device, your iPad, your phone, if you want to project Punishing Gray Raven onto a TV, if you have any kind of setup that is not a PC, but you still want to play this game like a console. So the nice thing about it is that you can connect a console controller. It doesn't have to be a PS5 controller, it could be an Xbox controller. And today I really just wanted to cover some of the controls that have really helped me play Punishing Gray Raven. So when you first start out the game, it's going to give you some defaults that I think you should definitely change out if you want to optimize the way you play, especially because it can be clunky using controllers while having to activate skill orbs that are in a certain position, right? So wanted to show you some tips and tricks that have helped me tremendously in terms of figuring that out and memorizing the right inputs, and give you at least one battle run through where we walk through those controls. I'll probably try to play a little bit like this, where you get to see what I'm clicking. We'll see how well I can do with that, but hopefully this can give you an idea of how we play with a controller. So I have Punishing Gray Raven right here next to me. I'll show you what my setup is. So I usually like to play it on my iPad, and then if I can, I will project the iPad onto my TV, which is in front of me. Okay, so things that I want to show you are first how to set up the controller. Of course, first thing you want to do is set up the Bluetooth, which you're going to have to do in your actual controller settings, right? That would be under here. If you hold into those buttons, at least on an iPad, you'll be able to choose different networks. For my controller, it's the DualSense wireless controller because it's the PS5 one. Once you have that connected, I'm not going to go over that, but you essentially press these buttons and hold to be able to trigger the Bluetooth mode, and then you go into your iPad and select the controller there, and then it'll be synced, but you won't be able to use it yet, and you will definitely never be able to use it for UI. Like, I could control the analog sticks as much as I want. I still have to use my finger and tap around. That's why it's kind of important if you're playing it as a console game to still have your iPad visible and reachable next to you so that you can still interact with the UI while playing on a big screen, if that's what you want to do, right? Or you could just play on a little screen and it's a little bit more seamless that way. Okay, so let's go into settings, and under button position, which is a slightly weird name, I think, but could be a language gap there. You go into controller buttons, and well, I think when you first start, this is going to be off, right? So you gotta first turn on your controller mode, and then you'll be able to change these settings. What some people like to do is just cancel everything out so that you have a clean slate of inputs. I'm not gonna do that because a lot of these are useful, right? Like, for example, character movement, I don't think you're going to want to change that from the left analog stick, right? So don't touch those. Next row here, we have camera settings. Play with this if you're struggling with the camera. If you log in and you think that the camera is just like too wild, moving all over the place, then yeah, you can decrease it a little bit. I'm actually going to decrease it a bit. And then in terms of the camera movement, usually most games you do move around and you aim, right, with the right analog stick. So I also would not change those either. I would just leave those as they are. Then we get into the combat settings, and this is where things get into whatever your preference is, to be honest. So when you first log into the game, the defaults are going to be these two triggers that essentially, one would be to dodge, one would be to attack. And as I was playing that way, I found that it was throwing me off a little bit because I'm more used to playing games where these 4 buttons are the combo inputs. So what I ended up doing was changing attack to square, or sorry, no, attack to circle, dodge to square, attack rapid fire, which is like a little mini combo, I changed to be the R1. The signature move, I like to do it as the triangle, the very top one there. To switch characters, I have top and bottom. Since you have a party of 3, right? One character, the little orb is going to be on the top side of your screen. One little orb is going to be on the bottom side of your screen. So triggering with these two really makes sense. For the cub, it depends. It originally has it here, but something that I noticed while doing combat is that reaching out that way makes my thumb do more work than if I just have to go inwards, right? Going inwards feels more comfortable and I can do that a little faster. So I changed my cub to be the inner right, to the right side, little button. And then to lock on, I didn't really mess with that. All right, now for our next row, this is where things get a little bit complicated, right? Because while you're doing combat, you have to think, how am I gonna trigger the right position of the right orb without adding a lot of cognitive load on my brain, right? And when you're playing this mobile, you can just tap the color orb that you want, which is super helpful when you want to trigger those 3 pings, when you want to get an orb out of the way so that other orbs will give you 3 pings. That's a really fun part of the combat that works a lot better on mobile than it does with a controller. But don't lose hope, because you can end up memorizing a pretty good set of inputs in order to figure out with muscle memory which orbs you have to trigger in their correct positions. And I found that for me, this setup works the best, right? Because we have already set up our dodge is square, our attack is circle, our ult is triangle, and so I wanted to make our first position orb be X, right? That way it's and X is the very bottom one here. That way you can use it as a counter move, you can use it as a parry move, because when enemies hit you, you can parry with either an attack or like a skill orb. So I wanted to have the X definitely be accessible and easy to reach and easy to trigger as that very first position orb. But then all the others had to get pretty complex because you run out of inputs, right? We've already have these buttons using to change out characters and switch out with our cub. I found that my best system is to have some orbs be limited by the L2 trigger and some by the R2 trigger. So essentially how this would work is that I would trigger the X, right, as my first skill orb, then L2 with circle as my second, L2 with X as my third, L2 with square as my fourth, L2 with triangle as my fifth, then R2 with circle as my sixth, R2 with X as my seventh, and R2 with square as my eighth. So see how I just went in circles with my trackpad and then changed out between these two, right? So that essentially is a system that my brain can latch onto that is going to be a lot easier to memorize and remember in combat than if I were to just make each one of these just like a random ass control input. So again, right, X triggers the first orb, and then I go very quickly into these, do a circle through is the number, and then with the R, another circle through. So again, that makes it easier for me, and I can show you in combat how some of that works. I make sure that that's saved. These things here, like special interactions, I don't really know what they are, so I just left them blank. Interact here is whenever, for example, if you're on a mission where you have to speak to somebody and like a little orb pops up, it's good to have that so that you don't have to like reach out and click on the iPad. So I just have that set up as L2. And continuing, you just click down on R to skip ahead on the dialogue. And yeah, if you ever want to pause, you click this little guy, that little tiny button on the top, the select one. And let me show you some of that in action. Let's see, let's do some of the event stuff. Should we try an easy mode or a hard mode? Let's try a hard mode, see what happens. Different characters are gonna have some different abilities, so let me show you at least with these guys. But we can go ahead and skip. All right, so with her, Oh my gosh, this is gonna be really hard to do while trying to fight her, but we'll probably die a bit, and that's okay. See how that just triggered the first orb? Because I just pressed X. Now I can do X again, and it'll trigger the first position orb again. Same thing again, right? Just X. See why I chose X? X is that most accessible button that you could press to just trigger that first position orb. Now let's take a look at our cub, which is this little button to the side, right? So that was the cub. So dodge with the square there. Then any of these orbs are 3 pings because they're flashing, so it doesn't matter which ones we press. Then I'm gonna do some attacks to trigger more orbs. Then we're gonna trigger my cub. Then here, I wanna try to get that blue orb. That's it. Well, now that they're all 3 pings, I might as well just do first slot. Now I wanna try to get that blue out of the way, right? So we're gonna do that to combine the yellows, and now the yellows are in first position, which is great. We'll do a couple of normal attacks, get into our nice. If you with Bianca dodge and then attack like that, you'll be able to do this pretty cool combo, but you have to get it right. You gotta get the timing right. That was the ult again. With Crimson Weave, I do a lot of dashing with the square. Then let's do my ult with the triangle. This is gonna, I can now do some of these pings, which now I can trigger Bianca with the up. Let's do this combo here with the attack button, which is the circle. Then we'll do our cub, which is a side. Then we can ride our cub and slam into her. And now let's do the middle ping. That was L2 and circle. See, because I've gotten into pretty good muscle memory now of which buttons I've set up, because of my little wheel system, right, that I have, I can much more easily trigger the orbs that I actually want to trigger. Okay, so with Selena, it's a lot more dodging with her, which will dodge, enter mode, do X to trigger an orb. Now I'm gonna try to just build up some of my orbs to try to see if I can reposition them. Okay, so see how now we have red and blue? Let's get those blue out of the way, and so we can trigger a 3 ping of the red if we don't die first. Then we're gonna trigger, and then this is where you just wanna do X for her, right? Because for Selena's ult mode, you're just using orbs. Now I'm gonna try to collect another red orb with more attacks. Okay. That didn't work how I wanted, but that's okay. See, I'd like to choose a straggler there, because whenever they're flashing, they are 3 pings anyways. Let's do that, get it out of the way, because I like that move. Then we'll do a 3 ping here. Or sorry, that was a 2 ping. Do that. Ooh. This dash. Do this so we can trigger alpha. So I hope that makes sense, right? Where you have buttons that are more universal, with the dodging being the square, down being to switch characters, or up, right, depending on which character you want to switch into. X being how you really trigger, let me do one here, the first position orb, and then using that circle system to optimize the way that you trigger your other orbs. But you get the gist, right? Eventually you're gonna start to get how to do this pretty speedy. And there you go. So with this system where the orbs, you have them set up in this kind of circular pattern, right, with either the L2 or the R2, it's gonna help you get the hang of it a lot faster. So that's definitely what I would recommend. Let me know if you have any questions. Feel free to drop them in the comments. And if you have better ways, if you have found something that works even better, let me know, because I'm still trying to optimize if I can too. But we'll cut it here. This was a short one for today. Just wanted to show you that. And thanks for watching. If you liked it, give it a like. If you liked me, then go ahead and subscribe. And hope to see you next time.